And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode 55, a double nickel, just like Jordan dropped in the Garden. And boy, if you're a New York Knicks fan, they had a pretty ugly game today. But neither here nor there. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Ford Aerostars, a much more positive, enlightening topic. And okay, so, some things we've been into lately, particularly me, is I've really been into extended model Aerostars, so I'll give you a little hint or a preview of what's to come. And, boy, again, I feel I should have more sort of exposition on these episodes, but lately it's just, sort of cut to the chase and get to the point, and maybe that's a good thing. So, without further ado, let's present to you all here this beautiful Aerostar. Here we have a 1997 Ford Aerostar minivan, listed for just $3,500. Maybe I shouldn't say just $3,500, because we're getting up to the mid-tier Aerostar price. Listed for $3,500 in Feasterville, Trevose, Pennsylvania. Boy, that might be the most interesting name I've found yet. Feasterville, Trevose, or Feasterville, Trevis, or Festerville, Trevose, or Trevose. I don't know. If anyone's from Feasterville, Trevose, Feasterville-Trevose, Pennsylvania, please let me know and how the heck you say that name. But it sounds very, sophisticated. I bought this Aerostar in Feasterville, Trevose. Sounds like southern France or something. Anywho, I digress. About this vehicle, driven just 67,000 miles. We had the bubble top wheelchair van was only 69,000 miles. This one's only 67,000 miles, and also in white. Automatic transmission, exterior color white, interior color gray. Fuel type is gasoline, 15 mpg city, 22 highway for a combined 18 miles per gallon. It's had 2 owners, it's paid off, and it has a clean title. Unlike the other white Aerostar that had a clean title. And if you saw that video, that will explain more. Okay, seller's description. Make an offer. Actually, it says make a offer. I've been recently listening to a lot of Norm Macdonald comedy. Now I do that a lot, but it comes in little waves. And big Norm Macdonald fan. So I just listened to one of the last shows he ever did in Columbus, Ohio. Another great Columbus, another great Aerostar city, by the way. I purchased my 1993 Aerostar Sport just outside of Columbus. Neither here nor there. Anyhow, Norm Macdonald liked to say a where he probably should have said an. He liked to leave off the N off of an and say a, even when it came before a word that you would usually use and for. So that reminded me of, it's just one of the little quirky things that he did that if you were really a nut or a diehard fan of his, you noticed. And it was one of these little subtle things that he did that you appreciated and made you laugh regardless of the content he was talking about. That's one of the beautiful things about him. You have all these little Easter eggs if you were listening really closely. So not make an offer, it's make a offer. Make a offer. Runs and drives great. Original miles. Original miles is sort of an interesting phrase, isn't it? Like original seats, original engine. Like how do you put replacement miles on a vehicle? I'm not sure what that means. But I suppose it means accurate mileage, and I don't know. It stumps me. I'm sure there's a logical, reasonable explanation for it, but it is a funny phrase to me. Clean title. Interior and exterior and good shape. So this is why I love grammar. I love these, as I've said many times, but if you're new here, it's an exposition on the Ford Aerostar, but it's also sort of an exposition on Marketplace and Classifieds and Craigslist and all that too, because these descriptions are just like kind of gold for someone who's like, and I've also been watching George Carlin recently, and for two comedians who really pick apart like the English language. There's just like a lot of, I appreciate that. And so I appreciate, oh boy, now as the beasts come awake, they must have been so, happy to hear that I was talking about language. So, just don't mind the rabid beasts that we have living here in this house. They're all mammals, for whatever that's worth. Okay, where was I? This will be a janky one. Okay, so interior and exterior, I think they meant to write are in good shape, or I don't know. Like something, yeah, interior and exterior are in good shape, but they wrote interior and exterior and good shape, which sounds like they're saying when advertising this van, it has an exterior and it has an interior and it's in good shape. So you're getting three things. You know, it's not like a van that's in good shape but doesn't have an exterior or doesn't have an interior. Now I can see a van not having an interior, but it's very hard to think of a van not having an exterior, or any vehicle. You know, all it needs is an exterior. Well, it's like, well, what's holding it together? So interior and exterior and good shape. So not only does it have an interior and an exterior, but it's also in good shape, and presumably the interior and the exterior that it has are also in good shape. So that's fantastic. Tires are good, so the tires are good too. It also features, this van features tires. It was sitting in Florida for a vacation vehicle. I almost read that as it was sitting in Florida for a vacation, which is kind of funny. It was sitting in Florida for a vacation vehicle, but just brought back a few months ago. Brake lines got leak and need to be replaced. So the brake lines have a leak, or have leaks, or the brake lines got leak and need to be replaced. Well, that's should go without saying if they got a leak, but good to know. Very forthcoming. I always appreciate, a transparent description of the vehicle's condition. Besides that and a battery, when is very reliable. And, it almost sounds like this was maybe translated, from a different language in Google Translate or something like that. It's not quite there, but I do appreciate the puzzle that it's providing. Besides that and a battery, when is very reliable? Question mark? I don't know. Besides that and a battery, it is very reliable. That's funny. That it's not like it's even like, typos or misspellings. It's almost like the wrong word is in there altogether. So that's interesting. Private message me if interested. Okay, well, so that was a bit of an expose there. So take that for what it's worth. We can put the pieces together. It was a vacation vehicle down in Florida, which is also just fantastic. As an aside there, that we're going down to Florida. We keep a car down there for when we're on vacation, and not only do we keep just any car down there, but we keep this beautiful, stunning white 1997 Ford Aerostar down there. So when we're down in Florida, we tool around in our Aerostar. And obviously Southern cars, always good. Now, the downside to Southern cars is sometimes they'll have not sort of, I guess I'll call it wet rot, like, moisture getting in and rusting things, but they'll have dry rot. So a lot of times your window seals and stuff like that will start to go on them just from being, beaten down by the sun if they weren't garaged or something like that. From a photograph here, they look to be in pretty good condition, I will say. It looks like a really, and only 67,000 miles. I'll sort of jump ahead here. What I was going to say later is that I do think this is like a sort of a low-key example of a really good sort of collector Aerostar, because you're getting in at a super low price. You fix your brake lines, you still have incredibly low mileage, and as we'll see, I believe, I looked at this one once previously, that the interior is pretty clean too. So if you wanted like a collector Aerostar, some of these classic car dealerships are starting to but take on like really low mileage, really nice Aerostars. We did that that blue over gray 1986 one that had, I believe, actually higher mileage. I think that was like 84,000, but that was like this cream puff, immaculate condition. But they're trying to sell that for 10 grand. And this one is only 3,500. You put a little work into it, and you got one that's almost nearly as nice for like a lot less. So if you're, for some reason, trying to keep an Aerostar as a collector item, as sort of a time capsule, this would be like a very good example that you could get at a very cheap price. It also is a 1997, so that's kind of cool, because as we see, it has the, the amber's been removed from your taillight cluster here. It's just brake and reverse. And that's sort of a mark of distinction. That's something Ford did to demarcate, I suppose, the last year of the Aerostar. I'm not sure why they did that, but I like that they did. I like that it's cool that you can, it's this little giveaway that, you know it's a 97, you know it's the last of the Aerostars just by looking at it from the outside. So I think that's kind of a cool, again, little like Easter egg. So if you're sort of in the club, you know what's going on. You can see it and point at it and say, that's a 97. Unless someone switched the taillights, and you could do that, I suppose, but neither here nor there. So, boy, I guess just a lot to take in on this one. So I was saying, but a Florida vehicle, that's kind of cool that they kept it down there as a vacation vehicle. And obviously, as a Southern vehicle, you would think that it would be very clean underneath. And it appears to have no rust whatsoever on sort of your rocker panels or any of the, common spots where surface rust would develop. It looks like a little bit of staining going on in the gas cap, but, that's okay. Okay, here we have, actually, and I just talked about, I haven't looked at this picture, I just talked about the sun wearing its effects, and here you do seem to have some surface rust on your top. But again, it's sort of limited to just the top, so even if you wanted to respray just the top, yes, it's not technically original paint, but you could get away with a minimum amount of painting and still have something that looked really, really fresh and nice. So there, the sun is showing its effects, patinaing the roof. Now you'd have to wonder about corrosion where it meets the windshield. That's something you should check out for sure, but you can probably get it sanded down and painted for, not a crazy amount of money because it's just one singular body panel. I do, of course, love the Aerostar in white. And this is sort of not a top of the line, but it's sort of emblematic of an Aerostar you could get. I don't want to call it a base model, but it sort of is, it seems to be. It's in like your standard color of white. The bumpers are just, gray plastic. You have your hubcaps. It's not like alloy wheels or anything like that. But I think that's kind of nice. As something that is like emblematic of what like a more or less base Aerostar was. It's no frills, it's very plain Jane, but you get to see it in sort of its most simple minimalistic form, and even in that form it's still, I think, quite striking. So it's kind of cool for that reason too. It's sort of just like a middle of the road, very nice, well preserved, low mileage Aerostar. And I like that. Actually, as I've said, it's a base model. Here we have XLT badging. So, of course, immediately I am wrong again, but that's why you look at these vehicles. I got a Pennsylvania plate on it. So maybe it does, being the XLT. I'm actually surprised. I'm wondering what exactly features that came with, because it doesn't have a roof rack. Maybe it does have the 4.0 engine in there. I believe in the last year of the Aerostar too, the automatic transmission was changed to I think it's still a 4-speed, but I think they used a different transmission in it. Perhaps it was more reliable or a little bit more robust. Shouldn't have to worry about that with such low mileage, but that's again something I should research. Beautiful tires, seem to be in very good shape. 14-inch wheels, standard on the Aerostar. Now, this is maybe a Florida thing or just an age thing, but it does look like there's a little bit of dry rot in those tires, so maybe even though the tread's still there, you probably do want to put some tires on it. And may I recommend, especially for a white Aerostar, some white wall tires. Some white wall tires I think would look fantastic on this Aerostar and really sort of, complete the package. Okay, these are just like the seat covers on my Transit Connect that I had, except this came with a steering wheel cover too, which, I'm not a big fan of these steering wheel covers. However, it probably did preserve the wheel pretty well. So that's actually kind of a good sign that's on there. And boy, just with one look at these seats. I mean, this is like, a little stain here, but the last video that we did, the gold Aerostar, like you could just see how torn up those seats were. And then these are just like, night and day. These are in really, really nice condition. Kind of a cool seat combination. It's sort of this gray, but it's got a little bit of blue in it too. And unlike the all gray seats that had like, this part was like gray and then this was more of a gray too, where it almost looked like you couldn't tell, of course I always talk about the two-tone seats on the Aerostar. Those are the ones that you couldn't tell as much that they were two-tone because they were all sort of, close to being one color as the Aerostar seats came, whereas the gray has much more blue in it. And so you do get that really nice contrast. And I think this is sort of those gold seats with the red piping were very, very common. You don't see these as much, this sort of off gray with a little blue in it with the more gray. It's not a houndstooth, but it has that sort of textured pattern in there. So a very, very cool looking seat, I will say. That's kind of a nice feature of this particular Aerostar. Again, interior, I mean, you have your Florida beach chairs here, so as if to sell home the point that this was a Florida car. I wonder if those chairs come with the sale. I would certainly, shrewdly negotiate the inclusion of those chairs. Kind of keep them with the Aerostar, keep some of the provenance of this Aerostar as a Florida vehicle. Your windows look to be in very, very good condition, of course, your seals even, and of course the Aerostar. I don't talk about this a lot. I talked about it in my brief introduction to my 1986 Aerostar, my slightly less brief introduction, which you could watch here on Janky AF. The sliding window. I just love the sliding window because it's not like we had a Chevy Venture and the windows just popped out a little bit, which I guess is a safety feature. You're driving around kids, you don't want them to fall out. And of course, a lot of minivans didn't have roll down windows, which I believe they do now just because of sliding doors and maybe the technology just wasn't there. So this sliding window is great because you pop it open, slide it out. You can get a lot of air into the vehicle. It's not like just one of these little vents. But it was probably pretty cheap to make too. And it wasn't a power window, so it wasn't going to break. It's kind of like the equivalent of crank windows in a minivan. But the fact that it slid out horizontally, I just think is a really, really cool thing that Ford did with these vans. Of course, you have your little headphone jacks here, which was a signature Aerostar thing. Double bench seats, so no captain's chairs here, but I'm wondering, it looks like it probably is the double bench seat that folded down into a bed, which is just another great Aerostar feature. So many of these little features that Ford did that I think were really, really cool. I like vehicles of this era also because you have your hard metal seatbelt latches. It's not like a lot of them now are like all plastic and everything, and these like really sturdy metal latches I really, really appreciate. One of those little touches of older vehicles that you come to appreciate once they sort of are no longer. And just phenomenal condition. It is all gray inside, but again, this sort of like bluish gray really just gives you that little bit of pizzazz on an otherwise, fairly, I don't want to say unremarkable because everything about the Aerostar is remarkable, but, again, like a fairly plain Jane, gray interior vehicle. I think that little bit of subtle blue in there really highlights the two-tonedness of this. Again, even your armrest in great shape, just really, really clean. And that's why I've said, as we see our obligatory mileage counter, 67,100.3 miles. Unleaded fuel only, of course, in the Aerostar. And I say that just sort of as an aside. However, now it does look like this, needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Looks like they kind of tried, but there's a little bit of smearing going on. That's all right. It's not been professionally detailed as like a dealership or something like that would. But then again, you're not paying the dealer markup, so all good. I say unleaded fuel only sort of as an aside, but I mentioned this in a couple of videos, but not a ton of them, that the Aerostar originally was it was designed originally to have a diesel engine as an option, and that probably would have been more in your cargo versions, I'm guessing, as sort of more like a worker thing. But boy, can you imagine if the Aerostar also featured a diesel engine? They nixed it, I guess, at sort of the last minute, which is really too bad because it just would have been that last little feather in the Aerostar's cap of every conceivable sort of format. Obviously four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive, manual transmission or automatic transmission, two lengths, cargo, passenger, barn doors, lift gate, different engine options. So there's all these things that make the Aerostar so versatile, even within its sort of oneness of aero stardom. So really a shame that they didn't move ahead with the diesel engine, because then, again, it would have been far easier to also convert an Aerostar to run on biofuel or veggie oil. There have been some Aerostar diesel conversions. There's some, if you go deep down into the annals of the message boards, there's a fellow, I believe his name is Pablo, who's done a bunch of conversions. I don't think he's in the USA though, because I think he was using a lot of like Peugeot or Citroën or Volvo motors or something like that. But it can be done. It has been done. Ford actually even made two experimental electric Aerostars, if you can believe it. And a couple of videos ago, I talked about how much I want Ford to make an electric Aerostar. And that's just another, there's actually precedent there, which is really cool. So if you, were to make an Aerostar EV, you could actually say that the Aerostar was one of the first factory vehicles made into an electric vehicle. So it's got that sort of pedigree, actually, which is just, phenomenal. I'll talk about that more in a later video. I actually, this is a little teaser, but I actually was able to get in touch with a person who owns one of the two Aerostar electric prototypes. And unfortunately, I believe I scared them off with my rampant, overwhelming enthusiasm for the Aerostar. I think I wrote a little, this is something that happens to me, which is sad, but, I guess it's on me in the end. I kind of scare people off with my enthusiasm. So I did not hear back from that gentleman, but perhaps I'll try him again. Okay, so a lot of digressions on this episode, but a lot to talk about with the Aerostar. So there you have it. Again, on the facelifted second generation interior, I love the BMW Z3. I've always wanted a BMW Z3, and they have this too. It's actually right in the same location. There's something about a pull tab light that I just love. Like my Buick has big buttons that I love too, but a pull tab light, there's something so mechanical about it. I think a lot of cars in like the 30s and 40s had that, but I just absolutely love the pull tab light. Just again, that mechanical action really is satisfying to engage and disengage, and I love the pull tab light on these later Aerostars. Back to the beginning. Just really quite stunning, and like I've said, like sort of a low-key collector Aerostar here. If you wanted to get a really pristine Aerostar, you're going to be paying 10 grand for like a really cream puff Aerostar. But this one I think would be a really good candidate to be preserved and made into somewhat of a collector's item, because a little bit of paint work on the roof, and then brake lines, and then a battery, and you have yourself like a really low mileage, really clean southern example of an Aerostar. And being 97, that's sort of important because it was the last year. It's an extended version, which I always think just sort of gives a little bit more provenance to it. It's like the biggest one you could get, and it has that full-size look to it with your lift gate. Even your bumpers, which again we've talked about, are on the last video, the Gold 97. These things just are like dust. It was definitely a weak point. These things crumble very easily, and it's very hard to find them. And this one now, I believe these cracks probably were not there. Now maybe there was like a molding line there. I don't think so though. I think these are probably little hairline cracks, but the fact that they've cracked so evenly, maybe they were sort of there. But even your bumpers are in very, very good condition, and that alone is something that's going to be very, very hard to find. As we take one last look at the beautiful, beautiful interior of this 1997 Aerostar. Looks like your stereo system has been upgraded a little bit, and now the dogs have arrived, and everything is very chaotic. I don't know if this has a, this is funny, this is an XLT, because I don't even see a CD player or a cassette here. It looks like we just have an AM FM radio, which is weird that it's not. Maybe the XLT was just like I don't know, this was kind of strangely optioned Aerostar, I will say. If it's just got a radio, that's kind of funny. But another sort of just like emblematic thing of like, you used to be able to order a car without a CD or cassette player. Now, of course, no cars have CDs or cassette players, but it's all Bluetooth. But this was just a radio. That's all you got. Tune into the airwaves, try to find your, local classic rock station or NPR station or, talk radio station, whatever you're into. Sports talk radio, and cruise along in your Aerostar and see what's on the airwaves. Back in the day when like the Tom Petty song, The Last DJ, they were like radio stations that people really tuned into, and the DJs had prowess and what they were playing, if it was edgy or not, was it was harkening back to a former glory days of some sort of technology that seems to have passed us by now, and that's part of the nostalgia of these classic cars. And nothing wrong with looking back and appreciating the good things about the past, while recognizing that we're moving into the future, and a lot of things have changed for the better too. But certainly an Aerostar is something that is taking away the past and the future, is just rather timeless, and stands alone as just a phenomenal product in terms of design and in terms of usability. And so I think in sort of that's the world that it really, really thrives in. Again, I like the extended versions too, just because of this long bumper strip on the back. And these, again, to see one of these that's not all cracked and beat up or has half of it missing, that alone is rare. Got your sort of slicer hubcaps on here. So there you have it. We've rambled on enough, I think. And I think, hopefully this is one that gets appreciated. I really hope someone does travel down to Feasterville, Trevose, Pennsylvania, and scoop this up and make it right, because boy, this van has a lot of life left in it, and I would hope something like this would get preserved and driven on weekends, and hopefully not turned into just like a dirty work van, because as much as I love a dirty work van Aerostar, I think this one these seats and everything in it are so nice that it would be nice to have a sort of a time capsule. Because as I've explained in other videos, when you see one of these in really good condition, it gives you a better sense of what they were like when they were new and how impressive they were. And so I think it's like sort of a way to get people into the Aerostar universe. And you know, once you're in that universe, it's a pretty good place to be. So there you go. Thanks, as always, for watching another episode of Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. If you haven't, if you've watched these and you like them, we'd love if you would hit that subscribe button. Smash it, you know, pummel it, but gently, you know, delicately, you know, pummel that subscribe button, because it helps us out here. Not that it's all about subscribers, but you know, we appreciate if you do that. It's pretty easy to do, and it helps us a lot here, because as we all know, YouTube is all algorithmically controlled, and you got to pay the fiddler sometimes. There you go. So we will have another one for you very soon here on Janky AF, and until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.